Hi everyone, welcome to this video. This video is going to be about, as you can see from the title, it's going to be about grief and everything that comes with grief, specifically my experience with losing a parent. And yeah, the reason for making this video is so that anyone else going through this, especially with the pandemic at the minute, hopefully anything that I say today can be relatable to you and will resonate to you. Hopefully it will help you in some way to feel not so alone in this situation, because I know how hard it can be. Yeah, I just hope that if this video has found its way to you, that it can give you some kind of joy into the situation you're going through. Yeah, so I'm going to be talking about a few things. Obviously, I'm going to start with my experience with grief, losing my mum, and then I'm going to go on to answering kind of very common questions that are related to going through grief. So hopefully that will help you. I know with the pandemic currently, so many people have lost loved ones, whether that be a parent, their brother, their sister, whoever it may be. Losing somebody you love is never easy, and it's something that you will carry with you for the rest of your life. And that does sound awful, but it's something that you learn to deal with, and it will take a lot of time. So please don't feel like you're alone in this situation. Yes, hopefully this video can bring you a little bit of joy. Do pass this video on if you know anyone who's going through a time like this. But yeah, hopefully you enjoy this video. So firstly, I'm going to be talking about where or how it kind of all started. So my journey started nearly 5 years ago. It'll be 5 years ago in April. My mother passed away on the 16th of April 2016. I was 18 years old and I was in my first year of uni. I was in maybe the last few weeks. Yeah, I must have been in my last few weeks of uni for my first year. And I just remember getting that phone call, and that is kind of how it started. So to preface, I guess, or to backtrack a bit, my mum had probably been ill for a little while. To be honest, I can't really remember how long she was ill for. It was a little while, but I guess because her passing was kind of sudden, I guess I didn't really keep track of how long she was ill for, kind of when it all happened, because I guess I kind of just didn't, I guess I just didn't realise, or what's the word I'm looking for? I guess it just didn't clock to me that it was going to be her being ill was going to be such a significant kind of thing in my life. But yeah, she had been ill for a little while, and at the point of her passing, we thought she was getting better. Obviously we were wrong. Yeah, we thought she was getting better, and as I said, it was a sudden death. We didn't, even though she was ill, we didn't think that was coming. So all I can say about a sudden death, you just, obviously you don't have time to prepare for it, which is probably the worst part. Whereas something like maybe cancer or another illness where it's easily tracked, or doctors can say to you, oh yeah, she's got this many years to live, so and so, whatever the case may be, you can prepare yourself for that outcome. And if it doesn't come, great, but if it does, you've come to terms with that realization and you've come to terms with that that's what's going to happen. Whereas with a sudden death, it is honestly like your whole world has come crashing down, especially somebody so close like my mum. It just comes crashing down and you have no warning, and nothing could ever prepare you for that. So yeah, only being 18, and that at that point in my life, I was just coming to terms with being at uni, and even though it was at the end of my first year, I didn't really gel that well at uni to start off with. I kind of hated it, but obviously as time went on, I finally kind of settled in and I'd started making friends, and I was getting into the swing of things, and I was finally comfortable living alone on my own, and I kind of had this sense of freedom that I really enjoyed. And then you get this call and it's like, okay, hang on a minute, you're enjoying yourself a bit too much, you need a reality check. That's almost how it felt like. It felt like I was enjoying myself way too much and that I needed to be brought back down to earth. And it is a very, very humbling experience, which sounds very weird to say, but definitely at the time it felt like a very humbling experience to go through. The weeks leading up to her passing were actually very, very weird. Like, it was almost the universe was trying to tell me that this was going to happen and I didn't know it. So I'd been home for Easter holidays, and I guess because she was ill, we didn't really get to do too much together. But I would always just sit and chat to her, you know. And then obviously when I had to leave to go back to uni, I said goodbye to her. I said, oh, I love you. And then it was kind of this moment where I looked at her and she kind of gave me that look that was like, this is probably the last time you'll see me. I don't know how to explain it, but it's almost like she already knew and she gave me that look, and I was a bit like, but I didn't think anything of it because at 18, I mean, I was young. I mean, obviously younger than I am now, but I was almost like naive to the situation because I hadn't experienced grief at all at this point in my life. So you don't think about it like that. But yeah, so she kind of gave me this look and I was a bit like, that was weird. But anyway, and then the night before, I think I tried to ring my dad and he didn't answer that night, but I think he was at work. Didn't think anything of it. I think I remember asking, like, how is she? Like, how's mum doing, you know? Or it might have been, yeah, something like that. And then the next day, my dad tried to ring me in the morning. I was obviously still asleep and didn't pick up the phone. And then I obviously woke up to seeing his call, didn't think anything of it. But then later on got messages saying it doesn't, like, that my dad had to come home from work because she wasn't doing too well. And then obviously got the call saying she had passed away. So that was a very quick rundown of how it all played out. The reason why I tried to keep it quick and detailless is because I know for me, I find the question or having to talk about how it happened or why she passed away, how she passed away, I find that a very triggering question. And I've encountered this several times in kind of like the 4 or 5 years that I've had to go through this. Anytime I've ever met like a new person or a new friend, and the kind of conversation comes up of my mum, Everybody asks, oh, how did she pass away? And it is a very, I don't know what it is, it's just a very triggering question. I don't answer it, for one. I go, oh, I prefer not to talk about that if that's okay. Most people are very, very understanding of that. But yeah, if you do ever encounter somebody who has had a loss, and try not to ask them that question, because personally for me, I find it very triggering, and I assume there are many other people who probably find this triggering as well. So try not to do it, I guess, unless somebody is very comfortable and open about talking about it. Then a fair play to them if they want to talk about it, how they passed away and all the details. That is absolutely up to the person, but I would never be that person to ask that question, because I know it's very triggering for me. So I think it'd be unfair if I went and asked that question to other people. But that is just personal preference, but I definitely would keep that in mind if you're meeting somebody new or making new friends. Try not to ask that question. But obviously everybody is different. Some people might not find it triggering at all, but that is down to them. Yes, as I was saying, as I previously said, it was not a very sudden death, but it was we didn't really expect it. So I had no time to prepare for that, which is really what, I don't know how to explain it. I think I find myself feeling a lot of guilt from it, that it was sudden, because it changes your whole perspective on life and the way that you look at it and how you move on from that. I tend to now look at things and be like, I want to enjoy every single minute I have with all of my friends, with anyone that I meet. For example, if I'm going to see my friends, I try to make the absolute most of it, which I'm sure even if you haven't been through grief, this is probably a lot of people's outlook on life. But when you've been through something like this, it just changes your perspective, and you just want to live it to the fullest and appreciate everything and everyone that you have in the moment right now, because you never know when your last day is, when their last day is. So I always make a conscious effort to tell my friends I love them every day, to tell my family I love them every day, to tell like my loved ones, like a boyfriend, a girlfriend, whoever, like to just tell them that you love them, that you care about them, you're thinking of them, and that you want them to be safe. Because like I said, you never know when their last day is, and it will be a shock to the system when you do realise that they're no longer there anymore. And you never want to be in a position where you regret not spending more time with them, or appreciating who they are, or appreciating their company, or regretting that you spent too much time on your phone when you were with them, or not putting the most effort into the work you're doing, or whatever it may be. I would just say, just appreciate the moment right now, because you're never going to get it again, and you never know when your last day is. I think that has been a big turning point for me, was the moment that I realised that. So the next step kind of after she passed was obviously her funeral. Now, her funeral was held over in Indonesia, and unfortunately, due to the situation and circumstances, my brother and I decided that we would stay here and finish uni, because my brother was in his last year of uni and he needed to be there, he needed to finish it. And I was also amongst essays and assessments, so I also needed to be there. So my dad and our other brother went instead, so it was just them two that went to the funeral. And also it just cost a lot of money, and we weren't in a position where we could afford to do all four of us and have the funeral. So, you know, that decision of not being able to go will probably haunt me forever. Not haunt me, but it's a decision that I have to live with, and it was a very, very hard decision, obviously, but I know that regardless of that decision, my mum is cheering me on in everything I do, and she's been looking down at me every day since. So I know that even though that was a horrible decision to make, I know she would have understood. And just like now in the pandemic, I think only 15 or I think 30 people can go to a funeral, and if you're not part of that 15 or 30 and they're your immediate family, I can only imagine what that feels like, because it is more than frustrating, because your immediate family or whoever it may be is not here anymore, and you can't go to celebrate that and celebrate their life. And it is so horrible, and I know it is, but just remember that whoever it is, they are gonna still watch by you every single day, no matter the decision. And it'll be hard to come to terms with, definitely, but yeah, especially in the pandemic where it was out of your hands, which is kind of worse, because there is no way about it. You are essentially breaking the law if more than however many turn up. So it is really, really hard, but just know that that person still is looking down at you and is going to be guiding you through every single thing you do. I know you can be as frustrated as you want to be, but that is not the energy that you need to carry with yourself. You just need to accept that and, you know, celebrate in your own way, whether that's letting off balloons or, I don't know, writing a letter to them, or whatever, however you want to celebrate their life. If you can't attend their funeral, do it, and don't let anybody tell you different on how you want to celebrate things. I've definitely let off balloons, I've written letters, because the guilt definitely ate away at me not being able to be there. But I've been able, through therapy and counselling, I've been able to kind of accept that decision, and I've done things in a different way, and I've just, I celebrated with letting off balloons and writing her a letter. So yeah, but if you are in that position where you're unable to attend their funeral, please do not beat yourself up about it, and just, all you can really do at this point is just accept that you're unable to do that. But it's not the only way to celebrate their life. Think of your own ways of celebrating their life, and that goes for anniversaries and birthdays and things like that. I've found ways of dealing with the person not being there through other avenues, like setting off balloons or writing letters. I try and do that as much as I can every year on the anniversary or a birthday, just so I can be at peace with myself, because at this point that is the most important thing through grief, is trying to feel at peace with yourself and your thoughts, and just be at peace with the whole process. It will be very, very hard, and you'll have days where you're up and you're fine and you're going through the motions and everything is okay, or you'll have really, really bad days where you don't want to get out of bed, or you don't want to do anything and you just want to cry about them not being there anymore, that is okay as well. They cannot tell you how you should grieve. As I was saying about my uni, which I'll quickly just put in here, my uni were really, really good about the whole situation. They were really forgiving, and they were aware of how obviously time sensitive it kind of was, in the sense that obviously I had deadlines to deal with, but obviously I needed time to process this information. And if you are at uni, if you are at uni, you can apply for something called mitigating circumstances. I think that's what it's called, where you can get extensions on deadlines because of a situation that has happened, and you just have to kind of fill out the form and give evidence as to the situation that you're in, as to why you cannot complete your things on time. And that definitely took the pressure off, because I was in like my last 6 weeks of my first year, and we had literally assessments and a show to do within weeks of all of it. So yeah, having an extra couple of weeks to finish essays or whatever gave me time to process the information. I didn't have to go to lesson, like some of my classes. That was a discussion I had to have with obviously my head of department, and she said yeah, that was a discussion we had. I'm not sure obviously if all unis would do that, but they were really, really good and said you can take like a week off from doing lessons, or as long as you need, and you don't need to be there. Like, just focus on, you know, dealing with what's happened and allowing yourself to, you know, feel those emotions, because that is so important. Okay, so now I'm gonna kind of answer questions that I've noticed that come up when going through grief, and I think will probably help a lot of people. Now, a very common question I find, not necessarily people ask me, but something I asked my therapist and my counsellor a lot when I was obviously having counselling sessions at uni, was the idea of, when is it okay to move on from kind of the whole situation. Now, like I said at the very beginning, grief is something that you'll carry with you all through your life, because you'll have anniversaries, you'll have birthdays, you'll have, in my case, you'll have Mother's Day, and all of those days will be very hard, especially the first year. They will be very difficult days to get through, trust me. But the idea of moving on from grief is hard to answer, because you don't necessarily move on and forget about the person. You just learn to deal with it, and you learn ways of coping without that person while still remembering them, but not to the point where it affects your daily life, if that makes sense. So at the very beginning, probably for the first 6 months, anything and everything triggered my emotions, whether it was looking out the window or seeing a bottle that my mum used to have, or a piece of clothing that she used to have. Anything and everything would trigger it. Now, as time goes on, you just learn to notice whatever it is, whether it's a picture of her or, I don't know, just a memory that pops up into your head. You learn to acknowledge it and then kind of not to dwell on it, I guess. I don't know. Everyone's journey with grief is going to be different, so what I say might not apply to you. But yeah, I've definitely learned to notice the thoughts and then kind of allow it to subside, but still acknowledging that she's there, she's still present in my life. Yeah, you just don't ever forget the person. You just learn coping mechanisms and just learning to deal with the pain. Learning to deal with the pain is probably the hardest, because how do you get up every morning knowing that your loved one is no longer there? With everything, time is a healer, and one day you'll wake up and be like, okay, that pain isn't hurting so much as it was the other day, and you'll begin to realise that you can go on in life without that person, but still having moments to yourself to remember them. Like I said, on birthdays and anniversaries, I either set off balloons or I write her a letter, or I don't know, I'm sometimes just like to talk to myself, but as if I'm talking to my mum. That way I still feel connected to her. Whatever you choose as your coping mechanism is down to you, and don't feel judged by anyone. Don't let anybody tell you that the way that you're grieving or learning to cope with it is wrong, because it's not. Everyone is going to be different. Everybody deals with their emotions differently, and that is so important to remember. So if you think that you're crying too much, or you're laying in bed too much because you're sad, but somebody else is getting up every day, going to work and whatever, it doesn't matter, because they're dealing with it differently to you, and you just have to focus on yourself and allowing yourself to feel the emotions. And yeah, it will be hard, trust me. I'm still learning how to cope with it 5 years on. I still have days where I don't want to get out of bed. I still have days where I think about her and I cry, but I remind myself that you're going to pick yourself up from this. It's okay that you're thinking about her. It's okay that you're remembering her. And you just need to pick yourself up from it. And like I said, acknowledge the feelings. Let them sit there for a while. Let them subside, and then try and get on with your day. It's going to be an absolute battle, okay? Let me tell you that. But it is a battle that is worth fighting, because there is always a light at the end of the tunnel. And just remind yourself that tomorrow is a new day, and you've managed to get through it. If you did, great. But they're always going to be with you, regardless of what you're doing, where you're going, how you're feeling. That person is always going to be with you. So hopefully I have summed up and talked about everything that I wanted to talk about. I might have missed a few things off, but if there are any more questions that anybody has, then feel free to put them in the comments below, or you can DM me on Instagram and I'll leave that below, and you can ask me the question and maybe I'll film another video if I get enough responses. But for now, hopefully this video has helped at least one person, and if it has, then I've definitely done what I set out to do in the beginning. Just remember, don't let your grief define you or consume you. You will get through it. It will be a long process, but surround yourself with people that you love endlessly, people who lift you up, people who will be there on your bad days and be there on your good days. Those are your true friends. Yeah, so especially during this pandemic, please stay safe. Keep yourself busy as much as you can, and yes, hopefully I'll see you in another video.